Russian czars had unlimited power and zero supervision. The result? One emperor pulled teeth for fun. Another made nobles cluck like chickens. A third built an ice palace just to freeze a couple inside. These weren't mad villains from fiction. They were real rulers of the largest country on Earth. Here are 32 of the weirdest, dumbest, and most unhinged things they actually did. 1. Peter the Great collected hobbies like stamps, shipbuilding, military reform, and, most disturbingly, ripping teeth out of people's mouths without any medical license. He carried around this horrifying leather bag stuffed with dental instruments and viewed his courtiers' jaws as his personal training dummies. Picture your manager showing up to work one day with a DIY oral surgery manual and just deciding your face is the practice test. Peter would be strolling through the palace, see some aristocrat minding his own business, and think, that tooth needs to go. Zero pain relief, zero sanitation, and absolutely zero chance of declining. You just had to sit there while a nearly 7-foot-tall autocrat attacked your gums with medieval hardware. The ultimate flex, performing involuntary dental procedures on your staff simply because the mood struck you. 2. Empress Anna took workplace discipline to levels HR departments have nightmares about. When Prince Mikhail Golitsyn managed to seriously annoy her, she didn't settle for exile or demotion. Too predictable. Instead, she masterminded the most sadistic episode of matchmaking television ever conceived. Step 1. She dissolved his existing marriage and arranged a new one to a woman from her court, specifically chosen for being, by Anna's standards, exceptionally aged and physically unpleasant. But that was merely the warm-up act. The grand finale? She ordered an entire palace built from pure ice blocks during the deadliest stretch of a St. Petersburg winter. On their wedding night, the newlyweds were stripped nearly naked, marched through frozen streets, and imprisoned in this glacial torture chamber. Ice furniture, ice bed, probably ice cutlery sharpened to draw blood. It was vindictiveness elevated to architectural art form, like your most psychotic ex winning the lottery and spending it all on a frozen shrine to their hatred. 3. Peter the Great gets credit for dragging Russia into modernity, but nobody mentions his comedic sensibilities belonged in a middle school locker room. His signature bit? A weaponized piece of fruit. He commissioned a fake pear, perfectly realistic, impossibly appetizing, but hollowed it out and packed it with explosive powder. He'd plant this edible landmine in a fruit bowl at diplomatic banquets and settle in for the show. He was essentially trolling for victims. Some clueless foreign envoy or ambitious newcomer would reach for a healthy snack, and boom, instant blackface from soot, wig launched into orbit, total pandemonium. Meanwhile, Peter, this enormous giant of a man, would be doubled over in the corner, practically dying from laughter. His court probably developed serious trust issues around produce. The message was unmistakable. Under Peter's rule, even the appetizers were potentially lethal. 4. The story behind St. Basil's Cathedral perfectly captures Ivan the Terrible's unique approach to expressing gratitude. Legend says that once the cathedral reached completion, Ivan found himself so utterly captivated by its bizarre, magnificent beauty that he summoned the architects responsible, 2 men called Barma and Postnik. He needed assurance that this architectural wonder would remain unmatched, that nothing could ever compete with its splendor. A reasonable employer might offer raises or commemorative awards. Ivan opted for something more drastic. He ordered both men blinded on the spot. His reasoning was terrifyingly straightforward. Without sight, they could never design anything beautiful enough to challenge his cathedral. It remains history's most nightmarish expression of appreciation, a guarantee against future competition delivered with surgical finality. 5. Ivan the Terrible's romantic history played out less like a love story and more like a survival horror series where contestants kept mysteriously disappearing. The man accumulated at least 7 wives, numbers that would raise eyebrows for a touring musician, never mind a ruler from the 1500s. His matrimonial scorecard was a catastrophe. One spouse got shipped to a monastery, another allegedly died from poison, a third perished under deeply suspicious conditions, and that's just scratching the surface. By his final years, his horrific track record meant literally no one of sufficient nobility and sufficient courage would accept his proposals. The Orthodox Church strictly limited marriages to 3, but Ivan simply waved that away, essentially declaring, "I wear the crown, I'll have as many ceremonies as I please." Think Henry VIII of the East, except with extra poison and fewer memorable tunes written about him. 6. The moment the Russian Revolution genuinely ignited, the day his entire dynasty began its fiery descent, Tsar Nicholas II documented his thoughts in his diary. This should contain profound historical significance: terror, desperation, some acknowledgement of approaching catastrophe. Instead, it reads like the journal of a spectacularly dull vacationer on an unremarkable afternoon. His complete entry for that pivotal day: walked for a long time, killed a crow, drank tea. Full stop. The capital is erupting, soldiers are mutinying everywhere, 3 centuries of Romanov rule are disintegrating, and the Tsar's major observations are that he completed some exercise, committed light avicide, and consumed a warm drink. This is perhaps the most disconnected, serenely oblivious historical document ever written. It's equivalent to an airline pilot noting pleasant skies in the logbook while both engines are ablaze and the aircraft is plummeting. 7. Empress Elizabeth was a legendary socialite who apparently took personal offense at the Earth's rotation schedule. Her response? Forced the entire Russian aristocracy to adopt her vampire lifestyle. She completely flipped the court's daily rhythm, transforming hundreds of nobles into unwilling creatures of the night. Official government proceedings, state banquets, extravagant parties, everything launched around midnight and continued until dawn. Then, while ordinary Russians were working their fields under the sun, the whole imperial court collapsed into bed, leaving the Winter Palace a decorated crypt during daylight. This represents peak authoritarian energy. It wasn't merely commanding people's actions. It was fundamentally redefining when day and night occurred because her party schedule demanded it. She essentially declared mornings illegal because sunlight interfered with her aesthetic vision. 8. Peter the Great was determined to modernize Russia, and standing directly in his path was the traditional Russian beard. He viewed facial hair as representing everything antiquated, primitive, and insufficiently European, so he launched total warfare against whiskers. Simple encouragement wasn't his style. He implemented a national beard tax. Either you scraped your face completely smooth, or you paid the state for permission to keep your fuzz. Those who ponied up received an official metal token, basically a facial hair permit, that had to remain on your person constantly. Imagine dedicated whisker enforcement agents patrolling everywhere, authorized to forcibly shave any man lacking proper documentation. Government intrusion had reached absurdly intimate territory, as though the tax authority suddenly claimed jurisdiction over sideburns. Under Peter's regime, your face belonged to the state pending an official aesthetic evaluation. 9. During the 17th century under Zar Alexi I, Russia apparently criminalized joy itself. His reign produced a series of severely puritanical regulations designed to eliminate public enjoyment. These weren't gentle recommendations. They were enforceable laws that could punish you for cracking jokes in public, playing any musical instrument, or even chuckling with excessive volume. The entire nation was essentially governed by the strictest imaginable librarian. Picture happiness enforcement officers patrolling thoroughfares, issuing citations for unauthorized grinning, or raiding illegal underground comedy venues. This was officially mandated warfare against pleasure, a governmental stance effectively declaring, existence is suffering, and you are legally obligated to embody that. It stands as a bizarre historical chapter where the administration literally attempted to outlaw laughter by decree. 10. Emperor Paul I was a deeply paranoid individual who nursed an intense hatred for anything connected to the French Revolution. His anxiety grew so severe it encompassed choreography. He became convinced the waltz, with its intimate holds and spinning movements, represented a dangerously immoral, revolutionary dance destined to topple his regime. So naturally, he responded as any calm, reasonable sovereign would. He criminalized it entirely. An official imperial decree made waltzing illegal throughout Russia. Picture yourself as a young aristocrat attempting to enjoy a ball when guards burst in to arrest you because your footwork constitutes sedition. This represents micromanagement so extreme it's simultaneously absurd and horrifying. A government that wasn't merely involved in your affairs but actively policing your personal dance space. 11. Peter III harbored absolute certainty that he was violin virtuoso, a genuine musical genius, gracing humanity with his talent. The unfortunate reality? His playing sounded like someone attempting to bisect a living raccoon using a corroded butter knife. It was an acoustic atrocity, but since he was emperor, nobody could simply say, "Your Majesty, this is terrible." Instead, he compelled everyone at court to attend his performances. These weren't concerts, they were audio hostage scenarios. His wife, Catherine the Great, a certified intellectual powerhouse, had to endure hours of this torture while maintaining a pleasant expression as her eardrums wept. You can practically visualize her mentally drafting coup logistics with each screeching note. Enough, one more butchered melody and I'm summoning the generals. His musical incompetence wasn't merely amusing trivia. It likely contributed significantly to his eventual overthrow. 12. Peter the Great's interests weren't exclusively about terrorizing subordinates through pranks. Some were genuinely revolting and specifically designed to challenge his courtiers' digestive fortitude. He established Russia's inaugural museum, the Kunstkamera, which functioned less as a cultural venue and more as a cabinet of horrors assembled by a deranged collector. Display cases contained every anatomical abnormality conceivable: malformed animal remains, conjoined specimens, and most infamously, an extensive collection of deformed human fetuses floating in murky alcohol. But merely observing wasn't sufficient for Peter. During guided tours, to fully immerse his guests, he would occasionally fill a glass with the preservation liquid, the exact solution those pickled babies were suspended in, and require visitors to consume it. Imagine the absolute horror. You're trying to appear sophisticated, and suddenly the emperor presents you a goblet containing what amounts to corpse-infused spirits, fixing you with that expectant stare. The ultimate allegiance examination combined with history's most repugnant drinking challenge? 13. Empress Elizabeth didn't merely appreciate fashion. She maintained what can only be characterized as an obsessive, codependent relationship with her wardrobe. This woman reportedly refused to wear any elaborate gown more than once. Upon her death, inventory revealed over 15,000 dresses. That's not a closet. That's a textile-based nation-state. This collection would make any modern celebrity influencer appear Amish by comparison. Complete palace wings essentially served as massive, temperature-regulated warehouses for her garments. Consider the unfortunate servants tasked with cataloging this fabric tsunami. The emerald velvet from that 1749 reception? Check Corridor 52, Section D, adjacent to the Thursday brocades. She transcended mere royalty. She was essentially the founder and sole client of history's most extravagant and logistically impossible fashion subscription service. 14. Theodore I, son of the infamous Ivan the Terrible, was decidedly unusual. Following his notoriously savage father, Russia received a ruler who was profoundly gentle, intensely devout, and whose supreme life passion involved ringing church bells. History remembers him as Theodore the Bell Ringer. This wasn't some casual weekend interest. He undertook extensive national tours, not for diplomatic purposes, but specifically to visit various churches and personally operate their bells. While his advisors struggled to actually govern, the Tsar was perfecting his campanological technique at some distant chapel. He was so simple-natured and consumed by this fixation that genuine ruling responsibilities fell almost completely to his brother-in-law, Boris Godunov. Essentially, the empire was managed by someone whose only demonstrable talent was producing scheduled loud clanging noises. 15. Empress Anna Ivanovna loved hunting, but absolutely despised actually venturing outdoors. Rather than viewing this as contradictory, she approached it as an engineering challenge requiring creative solutions. She had her residences custom designed with oversized windows capable of opening wide. This arrangement permitted her to recline comfortably in luxuriously appointed chambers, enjoying refreshments while casually shooting any bird, wandering dog, or other unfortunate creature entering her target zone. It was essentially a live-action hunting video game operated from an upholstered chair using actual firearms. Dedicated servants existed whose sole responsibility was herding animals toward her windows so she needn't experience prolonged waiting between targets. This represented the ultimate lazy aristocrat's blood sport, combining hunting enthusiasm with an absolute refusal to ever wear outdoor footwear. 16. Beyond transforming her aristocrats into glorified court pets, Empress Anna also assembled what can only be described as a personal menagerie of human curiosities for her entertainment. She maintained an expansive collection of jesters, little people, and individuals with various disabilities, but this wasn't some progressive employment initiative. She treated them as her private live-action comedy troupe, except the programming was invariably cruel and dark. Her preferred entertainment involved orchestrating elaborate, degrading practical jokes. She'd compel them into absurd competitions, force them to physically battle one another, or manufacture humiliating scenarios purely to observe the outcomes while cackling uncontrollably. It's as though she viewed medieval cruelty as performance art and appointed herself curator. She wasn't simply a monarch, she was the sadistic creative director of history's most depressing and involuntary entertainment program. 17. Russia's time of troubles descended into such chaos it generated not just one, but an entire succession of men claiming to be Ivan the Terrible's deceased son, like a disastrous band constantly cycling through replacement members. History labels these characters the False Demetrius. The original was so persuasive, or perhaps desperation was simply that overwhelming, that he actually pulled it off. He marched directly into Moscow, gained public acceptance, and governed as legitimate Tsar for nearly 12 months. Consider the sheer audacity required. It's comparable to some random individual appearing in modern-day London, insisting he's a secret surviving heir to Queen Victoria, and everyone collectively responding, "Seems reasonable," before coronating him. This wasn't simple fraud. It was the most triumphant instance of fake it till you make it in governmental history, and it occurred repeatedly. 18. Catherine the Great was formidable, a brilliant tactician, cunning political operator, and sovereign of an enormous empire. Yet when night fell, she was also simply a woman requiring foot tickling to achieve sleep. And because she was Catherine the Great, she didn't ask a servant casually. She created an official position. One man's complete professional existence, his singular function within the Grand Russian court, was serving as imperial foot tickler. Consider that job interview's pressure. So, Ivan, describe your tickling methodology. Do you favor delicate feather movements or assertive knuckle techniques? This individual's entire career depended on delivering precisely calibrated, slumber-inducing tickles nightly. A single misstep, unexpected sneeze, or overly vigorous pinky toe stimulation could transform you from royal chambers inhabitant to Siberian exile. History's most peculiarly specific and luxuriously unnecessary employment title. 19. Empress Anna apparently examined an ordinary parrot and concluded, "This creature needs more obscenity." Consequently, eager to win imperial approval, her courtiers undertook a specialized training program, teaching her beloved pet comprehensive profanity. We're not discussing occasional mild curses. They transformed this bird into a feathered profanity-dispensing weapon, equipped with vocabulary that would scandalize seasoned sailors. This parrot became her primary instrument of social disruption. Envision some dignified ambassador attempting formal remarks, only to face relentless heckling from a corner bird questioning his ancestry in shockingly explicit terms. Anna found this endlessly hilarious. The parrot essentially functioned as her externalized ID, a green-feathered provocateur voicing every terrible thought she harbored about her visitors, and nobody could possibly object. 20. Every child plays with toy soldiers, but young Peter the Great's playtime resembled actual military academy. He wasn't satisfied merely arranging miniature figures on carpets. He conscripted childhood companions and local nobles' sons into his poteshny wojska, translated as play regiments. Except nothing was playful about them. He outfitted participants in genuine, specially tailored military uniforms, equipped them with functional scaled-down weaponry, and subjected them to intensive drilling and full-contact simulated combat. These weren't innocent pretend games. They were hazardous war exercises producing frequent real injuries. Imagine your child's summer camp suddenly acquiring live weaponry and initiating actual siege practice in nearby fields. This alarming childhood pastime eventually evolved into the elite guard units of the Russian Imperial Army, demonstrating that Peter's concept of recreation was invariably lethally serious. 21. Catherine the Great, the woman who challenged the Ottoman Empire and dramatically enlarged Russian territory, harbored a secret vulnerability measuring mere inches in length. She was pathologically terrified of mice. A single rodent sighting could reportedly send the almighty Empress into complete hysterical panic. Combating this miniature menace, she converted the Winter Palace into a feline fortress. She maintained an enormous, officially recognized cat army, granted complete palace access. They received proper feeding, veterinary care, and treatment as furry, four-legged security operatives. These weren't merely pets. They constituted elite special operations forces in her personal, anti-rodent warfare. The imagery is wonderfully absurd. One of history's most powerful women, capable of commanding vast military forces, completely unraveled by observing a tiny mouse scampering across marble floors. 22. Peter the Great's relationship with Russian Orthodoxy was, diplomatically speaking, complicated. Officially, he served as its supreme head. Simultaneously, he established an elaborate parody institution called the all-joking, all-drunken synod of fools and jesters. This wasn't merely casual drinking. It was an intricately organized, thoroughly blasphemous fraternal order for himself and his wildest companions. They appointed a mock pope bearing ridiculous titles and forced into absurd costumes, and their sacred ceremonies were essentially competitive drinking events. Their sermons consisted of alcohol contests, their hymns were vulgar drinking songs, and their holiest sacrament was bottomless vodka. The entire purpose involved achieving spectacular intoxication while systematically ridiculing every aspect of religious ritual. This was essentially a government-funded fraternity masquerading as spiritual organization, operated by the sole individual immune from consequences. 23. Let's begin with Peter III, a man whose attachment to toys ventured into clinical territory. When an ordinary rat dared to nibble one of his cherished tin soldiers, Peter didn't simply become angry. He went full military tribunal. He convened an official court-martial proceeding, because evidently bedroom property damage constituted a capital crime. I desperately want details about this trial. Did the rat receive legal representation? Was it perhaps a stuffed animal conscripted as defense counsel, completely unprepared for such serious litigation? Did they acquire a tiny rodent-sized scripture for oath-taking? The verdict was, predictably, guilty. A miniature execution scaffold was constructed with meticulous precision, and the rat was publicly hanged as a warning to other vermin. This wasn't merely childish play. This was a future emperor conducting rehearsals for his reign, proving that even the smallest creature faced the complete, terrifying, utterly unhinged power of his justice. 24. Most monarchs imposed taxes on sensible things like property, harvests, or trade goods. Peter the Great examined this system and thought, too complex. Let's simply tax existence itself. He introduced the soul tax, a revolutionary and devastatingly harsh poll tax assessed against every single male peasant, from newborn infants to elderly grandfathers. Possessing land, enjoying good harvests, or being desperately impoverished was irrelevant. If you possessed a soul and male anatomy, you owed the treasury money. This constituted malevolent brilliance. You cannot conceal your soul from tax collectors. You cannot claim fewer souls than actually exist. It fundamentally restructured tax burdens, becoming crushingly heavy for society's poorest members and transforming every newborn son into an immediate financial liability for his family. A brutally efficient mechanism for extracting wealth from people possessing nothing left to surrender except their very existence. 25. Peter the Great possessed tremendous energy, and occasionally that energy channeled into activities best described as deeply questionable. He apparently enjoyed bowling, a classical recreation. However, standard wooden pins struck him as tragically uninspired and insufficiently involving human distress. So he invented his own variant, human bowling. According to certain historical accounts, during his notoriously wild, alcohol-fueled celebrations, he ordered his court dwarves to arrange themselves in triangular formation at corridor ends. Then this nearly 7-foot emperor would grasp an oversized wooden ball, wind up professionally, and release it, attempting strikes against living targets. Picture the scene: frantic scrambling, the sickening thud of heavy wood impacting human shins. This represents cartoon villainy levels that animated films would reject as excessive. He probably maintained dedicated bowling footwear and a personalized monogrammed ball specifically for these occasions. 26. Peter III occupied the Russian imperial throne, but fundamentally he was a German enthusiast who received history's most extreme career advancement. Born German, he harbored an burning, obsessive admiration for Prussia's Frederick the Great. He adored everything Prussian: the language, military uniforms, drill formations. Consequently, he barely communicated in Russian and showed minimal interest in learning, preferring German conversation within his own Russian court. He ruled Russia, yet treated the nation like some unfortunate backwater assignment he was temporarily stuck managing. It's comparable to appointing someone CEO of General Motors who arrives wearing Tesla merchandise, drives a BMW, and constantly discusses German engineering superiority. His own wife, Catherine the Great, leveraged his blatant pro-Prussian obsession as primary justification for deposing him, proving that embarrassingly obvious foreign fanboyism represents catastrophically poor optics for an absolute ruler. 27. And ultimately, we arrive at the act eternally defining Ivan the Terrible. During a furious argument, reportedly concerning something as trivial as his daughter-in-law's clothing, Ivan's notorious temper detonated completely. He raised his heavy, iron-pointed royal staff and struck his own son and designated heir, Ivan Ivanovich, directly in the skull. That single blow proved fatal. Instantly, the Tsar's rage transformed into devastated grief as he clutched his dying child. But the moment had passed. In one blind explosion of fury, he had not merely killed his own offspring, but effectively murdered his dynasty's entire future, permanently cementing his historical legacy as a genuine monster. 28. Empress Anna essentially invented 18th century celebrity gossip journalism, except with considerably more state-sanctioned intimidation involved. This woman harbored an absolute obsession with everyone's private scandals, and she weaponized this fixation ruthlessly. She established a secret police organization called the Chancellery of Secret Investigative Affairs, impressively official sounding but functionally serving as her dedicated rumor-gathering squad. Their primary objective wasn't uncovering genuine conspiracies. It was discovering which nobleman was conducting affairs, which aristocrat faced secret bankruptcy, and which courtier grimaced when Anna revealed her latest outfit. Anna subsequently deployed this accumulated personal intelligence for pure, undiluted blackmail, keeping her entire court perpetually terrified and completely subordinate. She transcended mere rulership. She was essentially editor-in-chief of a nationwide gossip publication, where every story was accurate, and unfavorable coverage meant Siberian deportation. 29. The final Tsar, Nicholas II, inhabited one of Russian history's most turbulent eras, yet his personal pastime was surprisingly wholesome and relatable. He was an enthusiastic amateur photographer, essentially an early prototype of Instagram influencers within the imperial setting. And his favorite subject, his ultimate photographic muse, was his cat Kotka. While his empire balanced precariously on collapse's edge, Nicholas busied himself arranging elaborate photo sessions featuring his beloved feline. Numerous photographs exist showing Kotka sprawled across cushions, cradled by imperial children, and generally enjoying a privileged existence. It's a strangely humanizing, yet absurd detail. The man approaching total catastrophic loss was, during his leisure hours, basically just another devoted cat owner, attempting perfect shots of his fluffy companion for family records. 30. Peter the Great approached dance instruction with hands-on methodology, emphasis on the hands part. He imported Western-style balls and formal assemblies into Russia, but quickly recognized his nobility moved with the elegance of intoxicated livestock on frozen ponds. His solution wasn't patient guidance, it was physical violence. He would patrol ballroom floors during grand functions carrying a substantial stick or cane. Spotting any guest fumbling choreography or appearing clumsy, he'd approach directly and deliver swift blows to their legs, ankles, or shins. Percussive dance education. Imagine attempting minuet mastery while this nearly 7-foot, notoriously volatile emperor circles you like a predator, awaiting any missed beat to administer immediate painful feedback. History's most terrifying dance instruction, where public embarrassment fears were matched only by legitimate physical assault, fears from the host himself. 31. Preceding the catastrophic Russo-Japanese War, a conflict destined to humiliate Russia and catalyze revolution, Tsar Nicholas II wasn't merely consulting military experts and government ministers. He and the Empress were receiving strategic guidance from a French spiritualist and mystic named Monsieur Philippe. This individual was a complete charlatan claiming communication with deceased spirits and future prediction abilities. While trained military advisors presented logical assessments and warnings, Nicholas invested his faith in someone essentially functioning as a 19th-century television psychic. He disregarded his government and trusted the mystic, who promised guaranteed glorious Russian triumph. It resembles a national leader launching warfare based on astrological consultations. A catastrophic decision rooted entirely in superstition, demonstrating that when governing was involved, Nicholas preferred mysticism over military intelligence. 32. Serving as a nobleman within Empress Anna's court required constant readiness for anything, including transformation into farm animals for her entertainment purposes. Her humor operated less on genuinely amusing frequencies and more on "please someone intervene" wavelengths. When boredom descended, she would survey all the powerful, decorated men occupying her throne room, dukes, princes, decorated generals, and determine the atmosphere required adjustment. Her solution? Force them to impersonate chickens. She would command these grown, accomplished men, these pillars of imperial administration, to climb inside enormous wicker baskets and commence clucking. Absolute silent panic erupted as everyone desperately recalled authentic chicken vocalizations. Some decorated military hero, a fortress-storming warrior, would be sweating profusely while attempting convincing bok-bok-bok sounds. The ultimate dominance display, a twisted, degrading reminder that regardless of your prestigious title, you remained perpetually one poor cluck away from career destruction. From amateur dentistry to rat executions, Russian czars proved that absolute power creates absolutely unhinged people. Now here's the real question. Which of these 32 czars would you survive the longest under? Drop a number in the comments. And be honest, most of you wouldn't last a week. Hit subscribe if you want more historical insanity, and smash that like if Peter the Great would have definitely pulled your teeth.